Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This homie and peace out to the rest of you. Black heart, black mind, black in again. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Let me state briefly before I get into the meat of the message. Yesterday I was listening, I think it was to Officer Faulkner's channel, and my wife happened to wake up early and hear some of it. She asked what he was talking about, and I gave her a synopsis. It led to a discussion in which I learned how far along these efforts to divide black men from black women were in her community. They're going through something similar, and they don't fully realize how much of this is outside influence. She learned from me how far along we had been going through this and that it comes from outside influence. She knew about certain issues that we were facing between the genders because her community is facing them, but she was not aware of something else. She was unaware largely of how much of this came from the outside. Now, I've been a staunch believer that our conflicts don't start with us. We continue them, we perpetuate them. We don't start them, the internal conflicts, I mean. We did not fight about skin color back on the continent. We did not fight between the genders back on the continent. This stuff started from the outside. We got visitors that were not from Asia, but from Europe, and the boo-boo started. That's what happened. Now, I also want to point out something else. I learned from her, she learned from me. And what I'm going to say that we men need to be doing is going to be something it's going to be so beneficial that it's going to help other men in other communities. They won't be able to help but benefit if they see the pattern. They may not know about it, but if they see the pattern, they're going to benefit. This will be a problem for some of us that are so ADOS that we hate everybody else or look down on everybody else automatically. There are those of us that are factually ADOS, meaning we have an objective look at our ADOSity, if you want to call it that. And that is that we don't look at Africans as the enemy. We understand we are related to them. We don't assume that every African is good or bad. We take them as they come, but they're our relatives. And we admit that we face common problems and different problems. That's an objective stance to take. There are the others of us, and some of them are Muslim. And if you're Muslim and you take this hostile stance towards non-American black people, fuck you. Straight like that. Because you know goddamn well all human beings are related in the first place. And some of you you sell out coons because you'll have white American friends that are Anglo-Saxon, not even Italian American, and they're your buddies, your homeboys, your road dogs. Let somebody speak with an African accent, man, fuck that nigga, bruh. Nigga sold us out. Get out my face with that mess. Got an Anglo-Saxon homie who directly benefited somehow from the slave trade, even if it wasn't enough. And then you got, but they your homeboy, because they cool, you know. Especially if he can, you know, rap a little bit, maybe play some basketball or do a few dance moves and not lose rhythm. But then you got an African who's related to you, whose ancestors may or may not have had anything to do with our ancestors being sold, whose ancestors definitely had to suffer something for that, from a continent that has never stopped paying for its sins and sins it has not yet committed, and the sins of the Europeans that were there, and you want to cuss him out. But that's a side note. Straight like that. If you say you Muslim, and you all cool with lovey-dovey with white folk, but you want to push Africans away, you're not Muslim, as far as I'm concerned. I'm questioning your faith. Because that means you side with the oppressor against the oppressed. That means your sense of morality is jacked up. That means you think that Allah is with the oppressor against the oppressed. That's blasphemy. You can't be a blasphemer and a Muslim at the same time. I digress. Sorry about that. That was my inner Malcolm coming out. Now, what we men got to do is this. There will be videos, talks, and everything else put out by the gynocrats, the matriarchs, their mandingos and their goons. And they're going to be saying why women play these games and that games and why they choose who they choose and why. And they're going to be trying to justify, kind of like on Madame Noir. You watch enough of these videos, that Madame Noir video keeps coming up in your feed where you got them three sisters on that couch and the one in the middle keeps on justifying the hood niggas. The street niggas. And yeah, that one. Well, there are going to be videos that justify it. They don't just explain it, but they justify it. When you hear those videos, the proper response from men like us is to say, we don't fiv a guck. Why? It is an act of war. You lied about it when we were young boys. You didn't tell us about it. You silenced women who might have said anything about it. We don't care what the reasons are. We're going to fight back. We're going to evade your efforts to snag us and put us in nets where we have to pay resources to you that are valuable, that you don't have to earn. So you can spend them on the guys you actually want and wish would be giving you the resources, but since they won't, you'll spend on them at our expense. We're going to sidestep that mess. We're taking our balls literally and figuratively and going the huck foam. That means going the F home for those of you that only understand profanity. That's what we say to them. Now, to the ones like Anthony Spade who explain it, but they're not trying to justify it, they just explain it, they're actually giving you the game so you can sidestep this stuff. You don't have to talk this way to them. They don't mean you any harm. They mean you benefit, I'm sure. But to the ones that did, they had to justify it, like, you know, the cute women that get up on YouTube and they start talking about why we do it, and then they go off into that non-logic that they like to talk with, like they want this, but they don't want it. You see, the stuff that they can't really explain and we had to figure it out ourselves, some of us not till we were in our 30s, they start talking, and that's when you start saying, we don't fiv-a-guck. Why? You're wrong. You're dishonest. You're disingenuous. It's an act of war. You would never tolerate this being done to you. We're going to sidestep that. And we're going to try in reverse to extract as much out of you in exchange for as little as possible, because that's how it is. You made it this way. I'd recommend that you rather just say to them, we don't want nothing to do with you. But if we have to deal with you, we're not investing in you, and we have to benefit from you. Because that's what you're saying towards us. It's a relationship of war. When other men see this from other communities, black or not, they can't help but benefit if they see it. Some of us are going to be upset about that because we hate everybody else. Let's be real. But if that's the case, then, well, if you hate everybody else, you're not really good for us anyway. If you hate those who hate us, you're completely reasonable and logical. We need more of that. If you hate everybody that just ain't us, nationally and racially, you can step off. But you get the idea. Now, the meat of my message I wanted to record was about mentorship. And that is this. I wanted to say this about mentorship. I have to accept that I can't reach certain crowds. I didn't come up in them streets. Not far from them. I got to see some things that happened. But I didn't have to be involved in them streets. And I was not forced, alhamdulillah, to rely on trifling, itness, street ninja BS to survive. So I'm very fortunate and I'm very lucky. That's a good thing. I can't reach certain crowds because of that, and I accept that. By the same token, there are going to be others who can reach them. And if you feel that you're one who can reach youth like this, by all means, get to it if you feel so inclined to do it. But you got to be, one, you got to be willing, and then you also have to be able. And there was a time in my life when I would have been willing, but unable. Now I'm neither willing nor able, not to reach them. I can reach one kind. No, there are two types of people I can reach. I can help people that are on that path to stay on it and to avoid it before it becomes appealing to them in teenage years. And I can help those who have been on that path but are so sick and tired of it that they're ready to eschew all things black. Or I can help those who are ready to, who are that far gone, they're so sick of it, but they want to maintain a separate racial identity from white folks while still being functional. Because when I came up, that's exactly what it was. As I grew up, where I grew up, there was a culture, specifically black, African American, and it was middle and upper class. And it wasn't wrong. Because these were not people that didn't care nothing about the masses. It wasn't like that. But they knew how to avoid poverty themselves. It is a distinct culture. It is African American. Any African American would recognize it as such. Some would say it's a part of that Jack and Jill crowd. And many of us actually would say, I don't feel a part of that. I don't feel welcome in that. Well, a lot of the kids themselves feel somewhat alienated from that when they may go through a phase like that, but that's a different talk for another time. Point I'm making is that that is there. And that is a culture wherein you are distinctly African, American, black. You are not against other nationalities. And you also ain't with somebody, you're not with your enemy's dysfunctional stereotypes of you either. You not only succeed, or you try, but you do it for your benefit, and you enjoy the irritation that white folks see in that. The problem is there's some things that they're not into, and some things they are. Repatriation is not popular amongst those circles, but it is even less popular in the hood. That's the sad thing about it. Anyway, there is that. And if somebody is so sick and tired of a dysfunctional environment that they're ready to eschew their own people altogether, then that's where I can help them. I can say, look, there's an alternative where you maintain your distinctness from the oppressor, but you don't have to be dysfunctional. And that's actually more common than what we think. Circles like that amongst Black Americans of all classes are actually more common than what many of us would believe, because most of us really ain't dysfunctional. But most of us also associate dysfunction with ourselves, with our distinct racial and national identity as African Americans. I can reach those who are ready to eschew the dysfunction of a dysfunctional environment. And if they think they have to give up their blackness to do it, I come as a breath of fresh air and a pleasant surprise. And I'm one of many that can reach them, but I cannot reach the ones that are still into that knucklehead business. And so those who are able to reach them and willing, go ahead and do so. But you're going to have to tell them this. The youth that you can reach that we can't, you will have to tell them that they're still going to need both messages. They need to know what you know, and they also need to know what we know. It's not one or the other. It's not pie. It's not a dichotomy. It is it's a duality. Please let them know this. Otherwise, there will never come a day that anybody of such experience will be able to reach them with the information that would benefit them. Because as it is right now, you can reach them and that's great, but at some point you got to go beyond what I know and what you know. We got to combine the two. Let them know this, please, since you can reach them now. Hopefully one day, the mentoring will help. And that's for those, again, that are willing to do it, because I've lost that drive at this point. But there are others that have not. I hope one day this recording is irrelevant in the future. And until that day, I hope it helps. Black heart, black mind, black out. Assalamu alaikum.